A good afternoon and welcome to Live Impact News right here on 13 News Now Plus. 1 o'clock p.m. on the dot. It is April 2nd. The pranks are done, but the jokes will continue sporadically throughout our 2-hour stream. They will be mixed in with a heavy helping of news, some major live events, and the wonderful production of the People's producer, Nia Campbell. Nia, April 2nd, 2026. You're getting a round of applause from our gathered audience here in studio. We have a live studio audience today. Very exciting. Nia, what's going on this Thursday? I'm sorry, Friday Eve.
Nothing much. I mean, I'm just excited to get into the news of the day.
Are you excited to get into the weather of the day as well?
I am.
Me too.
That is
I'm
great.
interested to know how hot it's going to be and how long it's going to be when the stretch is going to continue.
And guess what? You're going to find out.
What an entrance. What an entrance
what
for
a
meteorologist
tease.
Hunter Forst. Coming in hot today, Hunter. Okay, I believe the questions were, how hot is it going to be and how long is it going to be?
So it's been really nice the last couple of days, right? And that's going to continue not only today, not only tomorrow, but also into Saturday as well.
The best day.
Especially
The
compared,
best day of the week.
especially compared to last weekend when it was freezing. I mean, it was brutal. But this weekend's going to be beautiful. Asterisk. Easter, warm again, but late afternoon, evening, cold front rolls on in. We will see some rain pushing through.
Okay.
But if you have brunch plans for Easter, you're fine. You're good. But outside right now, it is beautiful. People are at the beach.
Oh, let's do our oceanfront dissection here. What do we have? I think this is the most crowded day so far.
You say that a lot.
No, but it's because we're progressing towards beach season. It's always accurate. Now, there's something extra special that I want you guys to take a look at here, that I want us to focus on. Right below the word "the" on our banner is a tent.
Correct.
We have our first tent of the season on the beach. You don't set up a tent if you're just walking around, or if you're going to spend a couple minutes
You're
there,
locked in.
or you're on the boat. You get to set up a tent if you're having a full-fledged beach day, and that is what we've got today at the Virginia Beach Oceanfront. I see toesies in the water. I don't see full water entry, but I see toesies in the water here quite a bit. So that's another plus. We've been keeping an eye on that water temp.
Water temp's still chilly. Upper 50s right now.
Okay, so still chilly in
better
the water.
than the upper 40s.
But it's now warm enough to where if you do go jump into the ice box that is the Atlantic Ocean, when you come out, you're not uncomfortable. You've got that good mixture of heat and cold, right?
Yeah. I think it depends on who you ask.
You disagree. You still think
I think I would still be a bit chilly.
How windy is it at the oceanfront right now?
It looks, I would say, at the airport, winds are sustained at like 15 to 20 miles an hour.
Okay, fair enough. Still pretty windy out there.
Over in Virginia Beach, you see that tent. It does look, it's breezy.
The tent, you
So
know
it
what?
gusts
That's a
up to
great
20,
point, actually.
25 miles an hour.
My favorite observation of the day, and I didn't even notice just how much of a flow that tent has there. Okay, so still quite windy. Water still questionable.
Yeah, but that's all right.
That's all right. It's 80 degrees.
On the nose, 80 in
Nailed
Norfolk,
it.
80 in Virginia Beach, it's 78 in Hampton, 76 in Newport News, 80 in Suffolk, 78 in Elizabeth City, and it is 79 in Chesapeake. We are pretty similar to just about 24 hours ago. We're either a degree cooler or a degree or two warmer. So if you liked yesterday and you haven't stepped outside yet today, just think of that, because it's pretty much the exact same thing outside right now. For this afternoon, we should get into the lower 80s for a high. Mostly sunny skies, winds out of the southwest at around 10 miles an hour. And what I also love about this weather is not only a warm morning, but a warm evening. 6, 7, 8 o'clock tonight. It's still really nice, upper 70s to right around 80 degrees, mostly clear skies. Cooler up along the eastern shore, especially up around Accomack. There is a cold front, a backdoor cold front that's trying to sneak down, but it's really only going to affect the northern parts of the eastern shore this evening, dropping pretty quickly into the 50s. But for the rest of us, we'll be pretty warm in the upper 70s to low 80s. Then we head into our Friday morning. It is a clear start to the day. It's a nice start. We're in the mid to lower 60s. And by the afternoon, another day in the lower 80s. So 1, 2 o'clock, maybe you have the day off. That would be lovely, a day to get outside. So maybe you haven't been able to because you've been working through the afternoon. You haven't really been able to enjoy the nicer weather. But if you have off tomorrow, you have off Saturday, it's going to be still really, really nice. And you know what? Maybe you don't have tomorrow off, but you have Friday evening off, right? Friday night. Maybe you're going out on the town.
Perhaps a bit of a two-step.
A little bit of a two-step, perhaps.
Two-step out on the town.
And
perfect night for it.
And you're going to be two-stepping because it's going to be so nice out.
Mm-hmm.
The vibes are going to be immaculate. 7:30, mid to upper 70s. Friday night, clear skies. It's going to be feeling like a summer evening, really comfortable. So you're walking from the restaurant to the movies. You're walking from your house to, a little nice restaurant you love. Shorts, tea.
Perhaps a rooftop bar.
Perhaps a rooftop bar.
No roof needed.
No roof
You're
needed.
standing on it
Right.
because it's so warm out that you don't need an overhead protection barrier.
Exactly.
I've worn shorts to work each of the last 2 days. It's been glorious.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm jealous.
First time of the season.
Really?
Which is like a marker that I have.
Right.
First day where you're breaking out those shorts and you're wearing them to work, it's a big day. Yeah. Haven't gotten nearly as many compliments as I hoped. Zero, in fact.
That's okay.
Yeah.
They'll come.
Yeah.
No, Naya told me the other day. She was like, Connor's shorts are so cool.
Is that right, Nia? Why didn't
Yeah.
you just say it to me?
Yeah, I was just nervous. I wanted to tell someone else.
I didn't mean
Fair
to call
enough.
you out like that, Naya.
Hey, it's okay.
She
I
told
got
me not
the
to say
message.
anything,
Don't be
but-
nervous, Nia. Don't be nervous. That's why I wore them. To bring up the vibes. That's great. Thank you
Right.
so much, Nia. I accept the compliment,
course.
and the shorts are gonna stay because look at Saturday.
Look at Saturday.
Look at Saturday. 81.
Saturday, 81 degrees. Mostly sunny, still warm. Beautiful through the morning, through the afternoon, and into the evening. Any time you go out Saturday, things are going to be looking good. And then we have Easter. Happy Easter, everybody.
Happy Easter. Happy Easter, guys. We have
Happy
a
almost
live
Easter.
Easter event processing right now, actually. Now, I know I just put you on the spot, but since we're talking Easter, we actually have one of our live screens is showing Pope Leo celebrating the Holy Thursday Mass in Rome as we speak. So for all of those who celebrate in that way, the Easter festivities have officially started here, and that is a live look right now at that Mass in Rome. So, yes, Sunday, Easter are coming, but afternoon's going to bring us a slight damper on the celebrations.
A slight damper. We are going to see a cold front moving on in late afternoon into the evening. Unfortunately, we'll be seeing some rain, maybe a few thunderstorms as well. But if you have, brunch plans on Sunday, you have an Easter egg hunt in the morning or, even into the afternoon, you'll be fine. It's really late afternoon, evening. That's when we start to see some showers moving on in. So here's a look at the futurecast. This is 12 o'clock, noon. We're looking good. We're dry. We'll see an increase in cloud cover. But again, 4, 5 o'clock, that's when we start to see some scattered showers moving on in. Still could be a bit dry closer to the coast, Virginia Beach, the Outer Banks, parts of eastern North Carolina. Inland areas will start to see the rain moving in first, and then closer to the coast, you'll see it a bit later. But by about 6 o'clock, really all of us are seeing it, and that'll continue into late Sunday, early Monday morning. And then by the time you head off to work on Monday, we're dry, but we will be cooler. We will be going from the 80s to the 60s, which is fine. Well, that's all right.
I think it's a great sign when your big drop off is 62 degrees or 65 degrees. Right? You don't want to just judge the building by its ceiling. You want to judge it by its floor. You're only as fast as your slowest member. And when our bad days are 62, 65, 58, I think we're in a great spot.
That's a really good point, Connor.
A lot of aphorisms coming at you there.
I love to see. I completely agree. By Wednesday, upper 50s. All right, fine. We should be around 66 for this time of year, but eventually by the end of the week and into next weekend, we'll rebound back into the 60s and 70s. So Honestly, great.
Now, this is no offense to Hunter Forst, who Monday and Tuesday is your weekend.
Right.
But if you're going to have 4 days on the chillier side, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday got to be those days, right? Friday through Sunday.
For everyone else,
good.
yeah.
Yes. I'm sorry. You still get to morning walk?
This past weekend for me was great. It was warm.
Exactly.
So that's all right.
Yeah, you had a great Monday, Tuesday.
And then that weekend for everyone else was cold.
Exactly. We're
So
switching roles.
It's a give and take.
Good. That was very magnanimous of you. We're all getting a little something good.
Exactly.
And then we're all trading it off. Okay. Oh, those nighttime temps that you love so much.
Not bad. Low 60s overnight tonight. I did put on my AC before I went to bed last night.
Thanks for the update.
Is that dramatic?
I say no.
Okay.
I think you're perfectly fine. What do you think, Naya?
Yeah, mine's on right now as well.
Oh,
Okay, cool.
nice.
Yeah.
I think it was like at like 69 in my apartment, and I
Yeah.
was like, that's just a little too toasty for me.
My fiance is staunchly adverse to the fan. She doesn't really like having the fan on. Last night, she popped the fan on.
Okay.
It's that toasty out late at night.
I'm right there. I keep my fan on every single night, even in the winter.
I'm a fan of fans.
Yeah, I love a good fan.
Yeah.
Growing up, sometimes when I would like sleep at my grandma's house,
Mm-hmm.
I would put like a fan literally right next to my face, and she would come in the morning and get so mad.
But grandma's house didn't have central AC.
I don't know, but
she kept it warm in there.
But even like if there is AC,
Yeah.
I do like the fact that there was a portable fan and not just one on the ceiling.
You're like, I'm going to utilize my
love
resources here.
to be able to just put it
Yeah.
literally right next to me.
What was she upset about?
I think she thought it was like dangerous.
Okay.
I think.
What can you paint the picture of what could have happened? You just get sucked into it?
I don't know. Or I think she thought it was like blowing like just like particles straight into my face or something. I don't know.
Okay.
I wasn't sure what Graham's thought process was on it.
But it is the thought
But she didn't
process
love
that
it. She
counts.
wanted it to be like further away from me.
Yeah. She's just looking out for you.
She was looking out for me.
She loved her,
and I
her
appreciate
grandbaby.
that.
Yeah.
But another fan day tomorrow. We'll
Okay.
be in the upper 70s to low 80s. It's going to be a beautiful Friday. Great end to the work week.
Friday fan day.
Friday fan day.
Friday
fan
fan
day.
Whoa, we got a new thing, I think. Jamila is, one of our directors is here watching the show with us. Jamila, thumbs up if you think Friday fan day is going to catch on.
Oh.
Big thumbs
Big
down.
thumbs
from
down.
Jamila.
Okay.
Okay, now will you be going, you get off at a decent hour, will you be going to First Fridays in downtown Norfolk? I believe this is the first
Oh,
Friday.
is today the first Friday?
Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Right,
Yeah.
it's Thursday.
First Friday.
I'm doing the 4 tomorrow,
Oh, plenty of time.
so I get out at 5:05,
Plenty of time.
so I'll be there.
Yeah, First Fridays doesn't even 5:05. You're right in the window.
What time does it start? 7?
What time does First Friday start? Do we have? I'm sure we can get that information very quickly. It starts way before 7, though. I know that. Let's see.
The good news is I'll hear it from where I live. So.
Yeah, you're a short walk from
Yeah.
First Fridays. So you should be good to go. All right, we will work on getting. Actually, we'll get that First Friday information by the end of this stream for you guys because we want to make sure anyone who wants to go is able to go. Maybe you'll see Hunter Force there.
You may.
And Hunter, if I may say so, my family and I had plans for an Easter dinner outside. We watched your forecast and we changed it to like an Easter early lunch, an Easter brunch.
Wow.
So thank you
You're really
for
welcome.
everything you've done
I
for the
appreciate
reels.
that. I live my life making sure the reels plans work out.
Yes, we
I
greatly appreciate
really care.
it. Yes, thank you. Anything else?
How was that?
That was good. That was very sincere. It's very believable. Anything else we need to know?
Enjoy the beautiful weather.
Enjoy the beautiful weather, everybody. Hunter has blessed
Have a
us
great
with some
day.
beautiful weather. Have a wonderful day. Have a great First Friday, great Friday Eve, a great Easter. Well, hopefully we'll see everyone tomorrow before we give the full well wishes. But for now, that's it for meteorologist Hunter Forst and his forecast today on Live Impact News. We're going to take a break here. When we get back, a live event that we're keeping an eye on, and then a couple of other major headlines that we want to get to. Stay with us on Live Impact News. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News, and we rejoin you with breaking news. This is coming from CNN.com. We have just gotten word that Donald Trump has ousted Pam Bondi as Attorney General. This is according to a source via CNN. Pam Bondi out as Attorney General. Now, she will be replaced for the time being by Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, according to that same source. Trump had, in recent days, talked to allies about the possibility of firing Bondi. He talked to her personally on Wednesday about the possibility that it would happen, according to sources. In the conversation, which one source described as, quote, tough, Trump indicated Bondi was not long for her role and he would be replacing her in the near future. Sources said Bondi was told she would be given a different job later, and in their conversation, Trump floated the possibility of appointing her as a judge after her departure from the Justice Department, according to two sources. So again, Pam Bondi out as Attorney General. Let go, ousted from that position by President Donald Trump. Pam Bondi is someone who we have seen as a front-facing member of this administration time and time again here on this program and from many other news outlets' coverage. Pam Bondi has oftentimes been in front of a microphone speaking on behalf of this administration, on behalf of the Justice Department, leading the Justice Department that has been so active in President Donald Trump's, or active even may be an adjective that could be substituted for scrutinized during President Donald Trump's second term. A large portion of that scrutiny has come from the handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. Now, Bondi was in attendance for Trump's address to the nation Wednesday night. CNN has reached out to the Justice Department for comment. And according to reporting we have here, Trump has been frustrated with Bondi on multiple fronts, according to sources. In particular, he is upset over her handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. So criticism from the public over the way the Justice Department under Pam Bondi has handled the Jeffrey Epstein files, and also criticism from her boss, from President Donald Trump, over how the Justice Department and Pam Bondi have handled the Jeffrey Epstein files. That has been a key issue for the Justice Department, especially in the last 6 months and throughout this second term.
Hey, Connor. Just wanted to let you know. Sorry to jump in here.
Yes.
ABC is doing a special report if you want to take that and see what they're saying on the ground.
Okay, great note. We will absolutely take that. Let's go live to ABC's special report now.
Private sector. He then adds that the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche will now be serving as the acting Attorney General of the United States. We have been hearing for days now and weeks, quite frankly, that the president and sources within the administration had been frustrated with Attorney General Pam Bondi over her handling of the Epstein files, but also over accusations that she was not going after the president's perceived political opponents hard enough, Diane. Now, when it comes to now Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who will be serving as the acting Attorney General, just last week he spoke at CPAC, a political conference, and he said to the people who say, why aren't you doing more? I welcome that criticism. Keep putting the pressure on. He's certainly responding to a lot of those accusations and showing that he'd be willing to go a step further, Diane.
Rachel, thank you. And I want to bring in ABC News Chief Washington correspondent John Carl for more on that. John, as Rachel mentioned, sources say the president was frustrated with ineffective prosecutions of his political rivals and also Bondi's handling of the Epstein files. What more are you hearing about why?
Look, in terms of the president himself, he was upset, and he had expressed some of this actually publicly, that Bondi hadn't more aggressively tried to prosecute his political enemies, which is really quite a statement, quite a fact when you consider that it was Bondi's Justice Department that brought indictments against James Comey, his former FBI director, and Letitia James, the Attorney General in New York, two of Trump's top political targets. Both those indictments were thrown out, though, and he also, Trump had pushed for an investigation into Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve, and Bondi's Justice Department has opened a criminal investigation that, most people have looked at and said there's nothing there, but nevertheless, they have gone and issued subpoenas to the Fed under Jerome Powell. So she has made quite an effort to carry out his wishes at retribution against his political enemies, but not enough for the president. unfortunate. And in terms of the handling of the Epstein files, this has really been a frustration throughout the administration. Many people in the president's inner circle just unhappy with how she has handled it, thinking that it's been a PR disaster, including her recent testimony on Capitol Hill. So those are the key factors. But here's the thing, Diana, I have to say that if Pam Bondi lost her job because of insufficiently carrying out the president's wishes on these matters, it is hard to imagine that there would be another attorney general who would be more fiercely and personally loyal to Donald Trump than Pam Bondi. We see now, as you heard Rachel report, that Todd Blanche, the current Deputy Attorney General, will now be the acting Attorney General. Now, Blanche is somebody who, of course, is the president's former personal defense attorney, has shown quite a bit of loyalty, but it's unclear what he would be able to carry out that Pam Bondi has not been able to carry out in terms of these politically charged cases against the president's enemies.
And on that note, let's bring in Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas. Pierre, what does this mean for the Justice Department now?
Well, let me just say this, Diane, from the outset. Having covered that building now going on 25 plus years, there has never been an attorney general from my time of covering as close to a president as Pam Bondi was to President Trump. If you go outside of the Justice Department, you'll see a huge sign with President Trump's likeness, his photograph draped over the DOJ. So, as John put it, there is no question about loyalty. The execution of some of these cases against the former FBI Director James Comey, the execution of the case against New York Attorney General Letitia James, both, have failed to result in any kind of meaningful prosecution. They're both still being litigated. But again, the Epstein files and how that has unfolded with some of the missteps, according to her critics, by Pam Bondi, obviously played a key role. This notion of her being removed has been out there from time to time, but she has a great personal relationship, as far as we know, with the president. But clearly, in terms of the things that he wanted to have happen that were critical to him, they did not happen. In terms of DOJ, Todd Blanche, the acting Attorney General, is a person who has, played a key role in the DAG position, Deputy Attorney General. They essentially run the building on a day-to-day basis in terms of major cases. So there will be a relatively smooth transition in that regard. But there are major issues that the Justice Department has to confront, and now there will be for Todd Blanche to deal with, as well as the politics.
So, John, what's Bondi's legacy as Attorney General? She wasn't there for an incredibly long period of time, but she did make lots of changes while she was.
She sure did. I think that the symbolic legacy is exactly what Pierre just mentioned, that seeing that big image of Donald Trump draped over the building, seeing Donald Trump go and visit the Justice Department, something you really don't see presidents do, except possibly in a very rare ceremonial case. But Donald Trump made it very clear that he wanted a Justice Department that would be his Justice Department, his essentially personal law firm. And Pam Bondi did a lot to make that happen. They systematically purged prosecutors throughout the Justice Department that had any role in any of the previous cases to prosecuting Donald Trump, any of the special counsel operations, all of those people gone. Really senior people, junior people, the FBI purged of anybody involved in those cases, or anybody that had any whiff of disloyalty or anything but total loyalty to the President of the United States. So Pam Bondi does have quite a legacy in just a year in office as somebody who made that Justice Department, pivoted it in a political way to make it lockstep in line with the desires of the President of the United States and the White House.
And Rachel, how is Blanche reacting to this?
We just heard from Todd Blanche just moments ago. He thanks President Trump for the opportunity and for the trust to serve as acting Attorney General. In a statement, he also thanks Pam Bondi for leading the department with what he calls strength and conviction, Diane. But still, there are big questions about whether or not Blanche stays in this role. If he does, he would, of course, have to be confirmed by the Senate. And he is arguably even embroiled in a lot of the controversy surrounding the Epstein files. Remember, Blanche, who once served as the president's personal attorney, also traveled to meet with Epstein Epstein's co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell for hours behind closed doors as well. So he would certainly face a lot of questions from lawmakers on both sides about that. Diane.
Rachel Scott, Jonathan Karl, Pierre Thomas, thank you again. Pam Bondi is now out as U.S. Attorney General. Todd Blanche is now the acting U.S. Attorney General. Our coverage continues on ABC News Live and abcnews.com. And now we'll return to your regular programming. Of course, we'll have a full wrap-up on World News Tonight. I'm Diane Macedo. Have a great rest of the day.
This has been a special report from ABC News.
Okay, so there you have it. We are back here in Live Impact News, ABC, with a special report on the firing of Pam Bondi as Attorney General. Out from that position at the head of the Justice Department as we are April 2nd, 2026. We are a year and 4 months into President Donald Trump's first term, and the Attorney General has been let go. This, of course, comes not long after the DHS Secretary, Kristi Noem, was let go. And so now another member of that administration replaced, or to be replaced for now, Todd Blanche, will be taking charge of the Justice Department. So we are going to take a brief commercial break here following that piece of breaking news. And when we come back, we'll look to dive a little deeper into that particular piece of news. We've also got a few other things that we're following right now. So stick with us. We'll be back with more Live Impact News in just a second. And we're back on Live Impact News. Breaking news for any of you who just joined us. Coming down today, Pam Bondi ousted as Attorney General. She will be replaced in due time. So a member of Donald Trump's presidential administration that has been very much in the public eye, ahead of the Justice Department, which also has been the source of much public scrutiny, and also, based on reporting from CNN, the source of much scrutiny for President Donald Trump, especially surrounding the handling of the Epstein files. So in light of that, let's let's add more context to what may be to come for the Justice Department and the Attorney General, while also highlighting an event that we're sort of waiting on here on Live Impact News. We are expected at some point, I believe 2 p.m. is the anticipated start time of the event that you see all set up on your screen right there, and you may be able to read on those small blue boards where it says Confronting Microplastics. This particular event will be the Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin will be conducting what looks like a press conference or perhaps a panel on microplastics. That, of course, Health and Human Resources Secretary Kennedy, something that he has spoken about in the past. They are, I guess, according to this exact description, making an announcement regarding microplastics. So that's something we're looking out for. That's something we're hoping to take live. Now, one half of the reported speakers at that event, again, EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin, the administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency. Now, according to CNN reporting, Zeldin is one of those who is under primary consideration to replace Pam Bondi as Attorney General. In a statement Wednesday addressing reports that Trump had mused about replacing Bondi, President Trump said Attorney General Pam Bondi is a wonderful person and she is doing a good job. Now, one day later, she has been ousted as Attorney General, opening the role potentially for Lee Zeldin. That creates very interesting timing for us here, as Lee Zeldin is expected to take this podium that we are keeping an eye on in the next half hour. So Lee Zeldin expected to ascend to the podium as he is being rumored and reported as a potential replacement for the Attorney General, who we have just learned has been ousted from her position. So a consequential series of events to all sort of happen in this hour window that we have here. Now, according to CNN, the possibility of replacing Bondi with Zeldin first arose in January, and then that thought process sort of faded along with Epstein coverage in the news. As Epstein coverage waned a bit, talk of replacing Bondi waned as well. Again, this is according to reporting from CNN. CNN is where we first saw word of this breaking news. But the thought that Trump wanted to replace Bondi with Zeldin again began to circulate throughout the White House on Monday, throughout the West Wing on Monday. Again, more reporting that from CNN that in recent days, Bondi had privately asked associates whether they thought it was true her job was in danger, indicating that she wasn't sure where she stood with the president. It is likely that she has more information on that standing now, as she has officially been let go from her position, will no longer be leading the Justice Department. So that is, again, an interesting timing here as we await this live event. Now, whether that's addressed in any way at this event, based on our experience observing these events, doubtful. This is somewhat similar to the day that Kristi Noem was let go as the Secretary of Homeland Security. That day, we got that breaking news, and then later in our stream, Kristi Noem was at the podium at an event. So again, now today, we have not quite a mirror image, but a similar situation where at the very least, the person rumored to be replacing Pam Bondi will be at a public event, or an event at least that is available for public consumption via our stream or many others, just hours after Pam Bondi, it became public that she has been let go. Now, Pam Bondi is facing a subpoena from the House Oversight Committee to testify about the Epstein matter later this month. When she appeared before the panel voluntarily in mid-March, Democratic lawmakers actually walked out within half an hour. Republicans stayed and asked questions. GOP Chairman James Comer said afterwards he no longer saw a need for her to return and testify under oath. But there is a subpoena out for her to return later this month. Bondi in recent weeks has spent more time around Trump, including, again, we reported on this yesterday, joining him at the Supreme Court for oral arguments in that birthright citizenship case that took place yesterday afternoon. The first time that a sitting president has ever sat in on Supreme Court deliberations like that. Pam Bondi there with Trump at that deliberation. Now, the reporting we've got surrounding that particular case is that it is unlikely that the Supreme Court allows the executive order eliminating birthright citizenship. We don't have a decision yet. That is expected to come down sometime early in the summer, but that is where that case stands. So currently, that is the breaking news that we have today, and it is a massive piece of breaking news that we're able to bring you here on Live Impact News. Now, we do have other stories that we want to cover here. Of course, we know that the Artemis II had a successful launch yesterday. That was the story that we covered all day yesterday. The ship that will take human beings farther into space than any have ever gone in history had a successful launch yesterday and is headed towards the moon. It will be circling the moon, not landing on the moon, but it's a critical step in what is a very ambitious plan for the future of space travel, and not just travel, but potentially permanent settlement. So we're keeping, any updates that we get regarding that particular event, we'll bring them to you. I know here, Naya, on our TVU 14, that has been our Artemis II feed. If we're able to pull that up, we can't tell exactly what it is, but at least we'll be able to kind of look over something here. Now, what it appears as though the bottom right, at the very least, is the astronauts. That is very similar to the image we saw before they took off yesterday. Granted, that image was in the light of day, not the darkness of space. And then this appears to be a diagram of part of the equipment that's being used with the space shuttle. So outside of our depth in terms of knowing what that is, but that is NASA's live stream of the Artemis II mission that carries on today. It was a monumental day yesterday, getting to report on that, conduct interviews around that. We got to do it all here on Live Impact News. So that, of course, a major possibility that we are, or not a major possibility, a major story that we continue to monitor. Any updates that may come on that, we will bring them to you. For now, every headline revolves around the dismissal of Pam Bondi as Attorney General. Now, this is, again, months of scrutiny on the Department of Justice and Pam Bondi, much of it surrounding the Epstein files. Okay, let's take a look at what else we need to cover today. We have multiple press conferences that did run earlier in the day that we want to make sure we recorded, and we want to make sure that we spend some time with. We are currently sort of cutting those into more digestible sort of pieces of sound for you to look over, and then we will we'll be playing some of those. Now, one in particular, New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani and the Commissioner of the New York Police Department held a press conference earlier today. We are going to listen in on that press conference now to figure out what they are speaking about. Of course, there's been a lot of coverage regarding New York City and New York City law enforcement after the assassination attempt on a pro-Palestinian activist that happened within the last 2 weeks. So perhaps that is what is being touched on, but we have no idea. All we know is that it says, well, you know what? We do have an idea because we now have a more clear image of that press conference. It says Q1 crime briefing up in the corner on the monitors in that press conference room. And how much that touches on the assassination attempt is yet to be determined, but we do want to at least listen in to see if any further information is given on that incident. So let's listen in to Zohran Mamdani, the mayor of New York City. We'll meet back here to make our way through more of the stories of the day. So thanks again for hanging with us here on Live Impact News. Plenty more to come. Let's go out to New York right now.
Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here with you at One Police Plaza and to be joined by so many committed public servants. Thank you to Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch for your leadership and your partnership. I also want to extend my gratitude to Chief of Department Mike LaPetri and the members of the NYPD executive staff. Before I speak about the crime statistics released today, I want to first take a moment to mourn the devastating shooting in South Williamsburg yesterday, where a 7-month-old child being pushed in her stroller was fatally struck by gunfire. Thank you to the NYPD officers and first responders who arrived on the scene so quickly, and for their tireless work to deliver justice and provide answers for the grieving family and our entire city. My heart aches for the parents impacted by this tragedy and all those across New York City who have reckoned with such unthinkable pain. Every single child in this city deserves to grow up free from the threat of gun violence. Every parent in this city deserves the peace of mind that comes from knowing that their children are safe when they leave home. And I know that the heinous killing of Detective Diller also weighs heavily today. Many in this room knew him well. His loss still feels unfathomable. I'm grateful for his service, and my heart is with his loved ones. As we gather together to share the immense progress we have achieved over the past 3 months in our city, let these tragedies serve as a reminder of all that we still have to do to make our city even safer, so that no family must reckon with such an immense sorrow. The data we are releasing today should be encouraging to every New Yorker. The numbers tell a clear, indisputable story. Our approach to public safety is working. Crime continues to decrease in New York City. In the first 3 months of the year, New York City has recorded the fewest murders and shooting incidents since we began tracking these numbers decades ago. This quarter, we saw 54 murders across the 5 boroughs, a drop from the previous record low of 60 set in 2018. When you compare these figures to last year, which had already set historic lows for gun violence, murders fell by a significant 28%. Year to date, the murder rate is down by more than 57% in Brooklyn, more than 44% in Manhattan, and there have been no murders on Staten Island in 2026. In fact, it has now been 178 days since the last murder on Staten Island, the second longest period in recorded history. Additionally, overall crime in public housing fell 7.2% year to date and reached record lows for murders, shooting incidents, shooting victims, and robberies. None of that is accidental. It is a direct result of the hard work and commitment of so many in this room. Since January 1st, the NYPD has taken more than 1,000 guns off of our streets. Each one of those guns represents a block that is safer for families to walk down and for children to play on. The stories of these numbers in aggregate is one of remarkable progress. They speak to an NYPD using every lever at its disposal to deliver a safer New York City to all who call it home. There is always more work to be done, as we can see in the 11.7% rise in hate crimes across our city, with the largest increase being of anti-Muslim hate crimes, a 140% increase, as anti-Semitic hate crimes continue to comprise more than half of the total number. Major crime is down in nearly every category, however, across our 5 boroughs. The Bronx leads the city in overall major crime declines with a 9.4% decrease, and I want to thank every member of the NYPD for all that they do to keep every corner of our city safe from violence. Now, I've just recited many numbers and percentages, and while Commissioner Tisch will expand on these numbers and how they came to be, I want to put today's data into a little more context. Each of these numbers paint a picture of a safer, more welcoming city for our fellow New Yorkers, and they tell a story that statistics can never fully capture. Countless subway rides, evening walks, and trips to the park that ended exactly as they should have, boringly, without incidents. In that way, it is actually difficult to tell the true story of the enormous impact of today's data. A pleasant stroll down the block does not make headlines. A grocery trip that ends with a full refrigerator does not register as remarkable, and neither should it. And yet each of us know that the work that the NYPD does matters more than headlines. It is felt in dining room tables without an empty seat, playgrounds full of children, lives free from the dark cloud of grief. As we build on this progress, we do so with the knowledge that there is always more to be done and that this work is inherently unfinished. We can always make our city safer. If yesterday's tragedy is a reminder of anything, it is that even a singular act of violence represents a universe shattered, lives permanently altered in this place that we call our home. As we work hand in hand to deliver a New York City that is safe and welcoming, we all have a role to play. Those of us in City Hall, those of us who walk the beat or work from One Police Plaza, every person who looks after their neighbors and their community. We're on the right track together, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to a city where every New Yorker is safe every day. Thank you, and with that, I will pass it over to our Police Commissioner, Jessica Tisch.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon. Before we begin, I want to address yesterday's verdict in the murder of Detective Jonathan Diller. 2 years ago, Jonathan was killed in the line of duty while doing what he had chosen to do, protecting the city. He stepped toward danger without hesitation, and he did it as part of a life that was defined by service. I am deeply disappointed that the top murder charge did not result in a conviction. Based on all of the evidence presented at trial, I am convinced that this was an act of intentional murder. The failure to convict on murder one landed like a gut punch to all members of the NYPD. The defendant was convicted on all other counts, and we expect the sentence in this case to reflect the gravity of what was done and the loss that it caused. Jonathan's life, his service, and his legacy will remain a part of this department, carried forward by the men and women of the NYPD. May his memory continue to be a blessing. I also want to address the tragedy that happened yesterday in Williamsburg. A 7-month-old child was shot and killed, caught in an act of violence on a sidewalk where she should have been safe. I want to provide an update now on this investigation. A 21-year-old male, Amari Green, the trigger puller, who is currently in the hospital, will be arrested and charged with murder and 2 counts of attempted murder. We have also identified the driver of the scooter, but I will not be releasing his name at this time. Today we are talking about stats, but this incident is a reminder that these numbers represent lives. And as proud as we are of our officers' work to drive down crime, especially gun violence, moments like this deepen our resolve to do everything that we can to stop this from happening again. That is the work, and we are going to keep doing it with the focus and the sense of responsibility that a moment like this demands. 3 months into 2026, we are building on the historic progress that we saw last year and continuing to drive crime down across New York City. Here are some of our top lines. Through the first quarter of the year, murders are at their lowest levels ever. Major crime is down across all 5 boroughs, with the Bronx leading the way, down 9.4%. And we've matched last year's record low level for shooting incidents. These results are not happening by chance. They are driven by a precision policing strategy, going after the guns, taking down the violent gangs, and putting officers on foot posts where they are needed most and when they are needed most. Most importantly, this is a direct result of the men and women of this department taking this strategy and turning it into action on the ground. I want to thank Mayor Mamdani for joining us here today and for his partnership in supporting the work that we are doing to keep this city safe. Now let's get into the numbers, starting with shootings. Last year, New York City recorded the lowest levels of gun violence in its history. For the first quarter this year, we have matched that record low, ending the first quarter with 139 shooting incidents. We have also matched last year's shooting victims with 163 people shot in the first quarter of 2026. Major crime in Q1 is down 5%, falling in all 5 boroughs, with Manhattan down 7%, Staten Island down 5%, Queens down more than 2%, Brooklyn down 1%, and the Bronx down more than 9%. Let me repeat that. Major crime in the Bronx is down more than 9% in the first quarter. How did we do that? We identified the communities historically plagued by violent crime and deployed an unprecedented number of cops to our violence reduction zones. These are the places that have been hardest hit, and now we are seeing tremendous progress. As I mentioned earlier, murder fell to its lowest level in recorded history, down 28% citywide year to date in the first quarter. That is 21 fewer people murdered compared to the same period last year. That citywide decline was driven by significant reductions across our boroughs. In Brooklyn, murder is down more than 57%, and in Manhattan, it is down more than 44%. In Queens, murder declined nearly 6%. Through the first 3 months of the year, there have been 0 murders, as the mayor mentioned, in Staten Island, and in the Bronx, there were 2 more murders this year than in 2025. Robberies declined nearly 8% across the city in the first quarter, with decreases in 4 of 5 boroughs. In Q1, burglaries fell 21% citywide, bringing us to the second lowest level in recorded history. Residential burglaries are also down nearly 20%, reaching record lows. These numbers were driven by our precision task force approach, with patrol officers, detectives, intel and crime analysts, and specialized units all sitting in the same room, working the same problem with the same information. Citywide grand larceny declined nearly 4%, continuing the downward trend that we saw last year. Auto theft fell nearly 4%, a shift for a crime that's been one of the city's most challenging in recent years. This is the first year since 2021 that felony assaults have declined to start the year, with 44 fewer incidents than the same period in 2025. The only crime category that we did see an increase in is rape, which were up 10% citywide compared to last year. As you know, the state law changed in September of 2024, which rightfully broadened the legal definition of rape to capture the full range of these crimes. And since that time, we have enhanced our partnerships with survivor advocates and partner agencies to help survivors come forward and report these crimes. The reductions that we saw in major crime also extended into our transit system. Last year was the safest year on our subways since 2009, outside of the pandemic era. This year, we have sustained that progress, ending quarter one down approximately 1% compared to last year. Some of the most significant declines that we saw in the first quarter are in public housing. Overall, housing crime fell 7%. Murders within these developments are down 63%, reaching their lowest level in recorded history. Shooting incidents and shooting victims in public housing are also at their lowest levels in recorded history, down 30% and 28% respectively. And robberies in housing are down more than 27%, also reaching their lowest levels. These developments have long seen some of the highest levels of violence, and we've surged police resources to them as part of our precision policing strategy to drive these numbers down. Retail theft is a recidivist-driven crime that spiked in the early 2020s, affecting both New Yorkers and retailers across the city. From everyday items like toothpaste and deodorant locked behind cases to small businesses struggling to stay open. Last year, we applied a data-driven precision approach, identifying patterns, concentrating resources at high-propensity locations, and shifting from pass-through enforcement to sustained investigations. The result was a 14% reduction in 2025, and this year we have doubled down, and retail theft is down 20% citywide in the first quarter compared to last year, with double-digit declines in all 5 boroughs. We are continuing to take a focused approach to youth violence, adjusting our strategy with school safety agents and increasing deployments in and around schools. As a result, school-related enforcement is down 6%, and school-related crime is also down 6% for the school year. On top of that, we've implemented youth safety zones, modeled after our violence reduction zones, but designed specifically to keep kids safe on their way to and from school. These youth zones focus on the places where young people are most likely to fall victim to a crime: commuter corridors, bus stops, and the route students take to and from school, and we are seeing real results. Since implementation, major crime within our youth zones is down roughly 55%, with robberies down more than 60% and felony assault down nearly 50% during our deployment hours. Most importantly, shootings are down 56% and shooting victims are down nearly 55% in our youth zones during deployments. In our Bronx youth zone in particular, where this issue is most concentrated, the impact is even more pronounced, with shootings down nearly 75%. In Brooklyn North, shootings were also down more than 40%. Now switching to hate crimes. Confirmed hate crimes increased nearly 12% this quarter citywide. We continue to see that the vast majority of our hate crimes are anti-Semitic in nature. In fact, in the first quarter of 2026, more than half of all confirmed hate crimes, or 55%, were anti-Semitic, despite Jews only making up approximately 10% of the population of New York City. These cases are investigated by the NYPD Hate Crimes Task Force, which determines whether an incident meets the legal standard for a hate crime under New York State law. As of today, and for the first time, our monthly hate crime data will include 2 clear, accurate sets of numbers: reported hate crimes, those flagged for investigation by the task force, and confirmed hate crimes as determined by the task force. That is the gold standard for reporting on hate crimes, and that is what we are going to do going forward. This will ensure that the public has an accurate and timely and more robust view than ever of hate crime activity in New York City. The change that was made in February was intended to fix how we were previously reporting hate crimes. Given the inaccuracy of the previous reporting on reported hate crimes, I had decided to stop presenting data that way. This was a decision that I made on my own, not in consultation with the mayor. As you can see, we are continuing to drive crime across the city down by focusing on the people driving violence and the places where it is happening. That means putting officers in the areas carrying the heaviest burden, building cases against the people responsible, and staying with those problems until they are resolved. You can see it in the Bronx. You could see it in public housing. You could see it in the continued decline in shootings. This is what it looks like when the work is focused and carried through, and it's what we are going to keep doing. I want to thank and congratulate the men and women of the New York City Police Department for their continued efforts to drive down crime.
All right, so New York City Commissioner Tisch and Mayor Mamdani giving updates, many of which show decreases in crime in many, many different areas there in New York City. Of course, the really still now the hub of the East Coast, one of the most important cities on the globe when it comes to commerce and culture. New York City seeing some decreases in crime, and that announcement right there gave some more depth to those numbers. So we wanted to touch in on that. We wanted to get a look at that. It did not dive into specific, well, they actually did dive into some specific crimes, but not as much information about the assassination attempt that has been such a major part of New York news over the last 2 weeks. Okay, we're going to take it one more break. When we come back, we are still monitoring this live event that we have here that is expected to include the director of the EPA, who has emerged, according to reports, as a prime candidate to take over for the ousted Pam Bondi as Attorney General. So we are still monitoring that live event, not 2 o'clock just yet. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll either go live out to this particular event on microplastics, or we'll continue to explore some of the other headlines we've gathered today. For now, let's go to commercial. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. Obviously, a lot of talk about the Justice Department today in the stream, because if you weren't with us earlier, we got breaking news that Pam Bondi has been ousted as Attorney General and as head of the Justice Department, the role that the Attorney General plays, more or less. So Pam Bondi is out. A replacement now will be sought and named eventually. One of those potential replacements, the director of the EPA, who's expected to be live on this panel with an announcement about microplastics, along with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So a lot happening all at once. Of course, Pam Bondi let go amidst intense scrutiny both from the public and reportedly from the president about how she and the Justice Department have handled the Epstein files. So now no longer the Attorney General. Now that does not mean that the Department of Justice has not had some other things going on. Just yesterday, we saw Vice President J.D. Vance swearing in Colin McDonald, the new Assistant Attorney General for Fraud Enforcement. That is a Justice Department role. Confirmed by the Senate on Tuesday, sworn in by J.D. Vance yesterday, and now today there has been a press conference, if you will, an announcement on fraud that is happening in Los Angeles via hospice care. Now, we do not know specifically where this, this is officials is what we've been told. We're going to read into it a little further. We don't necessarily know the source of this announcement, if it's Colin McDonald, but of course we wanted to tie everything together with a fraud announcement, a new Assistant Attorney General for Fraud Enforcement from the Justice Department, and major changes at the top of the Justice Department. A lot of connections between the news that we've been reporting as the day moves forward. Let's listen in on that press conference now.
Good morning. Today, the Department of Justice and our partners are announcing a series of fraud charges being unsealed today in the Central District of California. You will hear in a moment about the nature of these charges. It is important first, however, to understand why the work to stamp out fraud matters. This work matters because every single day, the hard-earned tax dollars of Americans are being robbed. The lowest estimate of theft from taxpayers each year is around $230 billion. If you spent $1 million every single day, you would still be spending after 600 years. And $230 billion is the lowest estimate. Some models estimate far higher annual fraud amounts. It also matters because fraudsters who target taxpayer dollars do not just steal from taxpayers. They also prevent critical benefits from reaching those in need and sow seeds of distrust in government institutions and civil society. No more. No more. The whole of government, including all of the great partners on this stage, is focused on unmasking the criminal actors who are exploiting the American taxpayer. The President's whole of government anti-fraud task force, led by Vice President Vance, is already urgently on the move. The goal is to secure the financial integrity of our country because the American people deserve a federal government that stewards their money wisely and protects it from wrongdoers. As for the Department of Justice, under Attorney General Bondi's leadership, we are laser focused on investigating and prosecuting every culpable criminal actor in the chain of culpability, all of those responsible for defrauding the United States of America. Our goal is deterrence. Stop the lies, stop the dishonesty, stop the theft. If you don't, we will be coming, because no one should be allowed to rip off the United States of America. With that, let me introduce the first Assistant United States Attorney for the Central District of California, Bill Asaley, to highlight the enforcement actions from today. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. It's been a busy morning here. Once again, I'm Bill Asaley. I'm the first Assistant U.S. Attorney for this office. Last month, President Trump appointed Vice President Vance to lead the White House task force to eliminate fraud. Just yesterday, Vice President sworn in Colin McDonald to be our new Assistant Attorney General for National Fraud Enforcement. We're excited to work with him, and I know that I speaking regularly with Attorney General Bondi. Nothing is more important right now than rooting out the corruption and fraud that's happening with the tax dollars, not only in the United States, but particularly here in the state of California. And that's what we're going to focus on today. This morning, we executed Operation Never Say Die. Federal agents from multiple agencies descended on fraudsters throughout Southern California, executing multiple arrests and search warrants. We arrested 8 defendants, including medical providers such as nurses and doctors. We are announcing charges against 15 separate individuals who engaged in healthcare fraud, resulting in losses close to $60 million. The individuals targeted this morning were committing a variety of healthcare frauds in the greater Los Angeles County area, including operating fraudulent hospice care facilities. You're going to hear a lot about that this morning. Medicare reimbursed these companies for services that were intended to go to patients dying from a terminal illness. Instead, as the complaints and the indictments charge in what's been unsealed today, these defendants recruited beneficiaries who were not terminally ill and paid them to pose as patients receiving hospice care. Medicare then paid millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, on false and fraudulent claims submitted by fraudsters. This happens often way too much, particularly here in LA County. And again, the losses for the hospice fraud we are staggering. I think Dr. Oz will have some numbers for you. For example, let's talk about one of the defendants that was arrested this morning. Lolita Minard, a 65-year-old woman in Anaheim. She ran a company named Topanga Hospice Care. She billed Medicare for more than $9.1 million over a 5-year period for the care of supposedly terminally ill patients. This company had a death discharge rate of 85%. When you go to hospice, you're going there to die. You're not supposed to have an 85 survival rate coming out of your hospice facility. That is 5 times more than the national average of 17%. So you want to know how these schemes work. I'll tell you how she did it. One of the beneficiaries are the people whose names are being listed as the patients at the hospice. One of the beneficiary couples we spoke to said that she approached them at a market, or that they were approached at a grocery store about signing up for her hospice care. Minard and 3 other Topanga employees visited these individuals at their home and promised them if they signed up, everything would be free, and that they would each receive $300 in cash per month. The money was delivered in an envelope, again in cash, so this couple got $600 a month to allow her to use their names on these fraudulent invoices that are then sent over to Medicare. Neither of them had a terminal illness, and they received things such as nutritional shakes, non-prescription vitamins, and wheelchairs on top of their $300 per month. Again, Medicare paid more than $8.5 million on this defendant's fraudulent claims. That's just one example, and that's the story of how these hospice frauds occur. Here's another couple, the Gills. This one's particularly egregious because they are medical providers. Gladwin Gill is a doctor, he's a psychologist. His wife, Miss Gill, is a registered nurse, and they operated what's known as 626 Hospice in Glendale. Interesting enough, they both have a criminal history for tax evasion, and so they're not actually allowed to open up a hospice. So what do? They use their daughter's name to open the hospice. So they're operating this fraudulent hospice under their daughter's name, and the nurse would fabricate and add things to the medical file to make it look like the beneficiaries were terminally ill when they weren't. This particular hospice submitted more than $5.2 million in fraudulent claims, and Medicare actually paid out more than $4 million. And so again, it's another fraudulent hospice. Their discharge rate of survivors is above 70%. All 22 beneficiaries that we spoke with had no terminal illness. They did not qualify for hospice care. And so what's interesting about this case is It's been on the radar of the federal government for a while. I was talking to Dr. Oz about this. Search warrant was actually executed in 2022, but nothing happened with these cases. Nothing's happened with fraud under the prior administration. And you'll have to ask them why, but presumably it just wasn't a priority. And so we are making fraud a priority. So quickly, within the last year, we've been working at lightning speed to put these cases together, and you're seeing the fruits of that today. And I think you'll be seeing many more of these operations in the months ahead. And then this was another couple that was arrested this morning. This couple tells a slightly different story. Let's see here. Nita Palma, 76 years old, 3-time convicted healthcare fraudster who's actually in federal prison. She's charged in a new case because she perpetuated a new hospice fraud while she's in prison. That is how egregious and bold some of these fraudsters are. She's charged with opening and running a hospice care company with her husband in Glendale. She did so despite being legally barred from running a hospice facility and being a convicted felon. Her husband, Adolfo Katbagan, was arrested this morning. And they both face decades in prison for their role in this scheme. Together, they submitted over a 20-month span of invoices for $4.8 million in fraudulent hospice care claims. They received $4.2 million from Medicare. So again, I just want to highlight a few examples of the people that were arrested this morning. Look, this is not just a fraud problem. This is a California problem. I want to be very frank about this. The federal government is the purse. All the money comes from the federal government, but it's administered through the states. California is responsible for issuing hospice licenses. They're responsible for regulating doctors and nurses. And the problem that you see in California is that there is no vetting and there's no checking. They do not care because it's not their money, is the way the state of California looks at it. And so in California, I call California the kingdom of fraud, and Gavin Newsom reigns over this kingdom here. You have hundreds of billions of dollars in fraud. If you look at the EDD fraud, the SNAP benefits fraud, the health hospice fraud, the homeless fraud that my office has done, one thing is in common. No vetting, no checking. Money goes out the door with no questions asked, no receipts, no checking up on them. In fact, and maybe Dr. Oz will talk about this, California's own auditor said they need to put better regulations in place so they can have oversight over the hospices. They were required by January 1st of this year to adopt emergency regulations cracking down on fraudulent hospices. That deadline was January 1st. They did not pass the guidelines. You'll have to ask the governor, Governor Newsom, and the Department of Public Health why they refuse to issue proper guidelines and have proper oversight on hospices. So when the state says that they are taking fraud seriously, it's a bold-faced lie. They are not taking it seriously. They are not passing the regulations, and they are not sending people to prison. And that's what we're doing here today with this task force. We're providing the oversight that's been missing from California for a very long time. All right, with that, I want to invite Dr. Oz to come up and say a few words. Thank you, Dr. Oz.
Thank you, Billy. So I spent the morning together with a SWAT team that met at 5 a.m. and went after, in our case, the Gills at 6 a.m. with a carefully choreographed effort to shut down fraudsters who have been at it for an earliest recollection from law enforcement around 2018, indictments in 2022. And I want to applaud the U.S. Attorney, Billy Salen, the entire team here, Colin for leading this task force, because what you're witnessing right now is a seismic shift in how the Trump administration is going to change what was going on in the prior Biden administration. And we spoke to Vice President Vance this morning. There was a task force meeting. The first one was last week. As you all know, we had a press conference the day after the State of the Union when he was announced, leading the task force to announce actions by CMS, which included deferring of payments to Minnesota and a nationwide moratorium on durable medical equipment. However, hospice in Southern California is an entire different level of fraud. And these law enforcement leaders and the brave men and women that I was able to witness this morning go after these criminals are doing God's work, and they're going to be able to do it more effectively because there's been a demand made by the President and the Vice President that is an all-of-government effort. All of us have to talk to each other, which means CMS, which runs insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, CHIP, the ACA, Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, all the insurance public elements need to communicate very swiftly with law enforcement, with Treasury, with everybody else whose fingerprints might actually be helpful in figuring out the problems. Now, the accused criminals in this case, as Billy mentioned, are a doctor and a nurse. Shameful that licensed professionals will be involved in this. And we've talked about the monetary costs, and I will focus on those as well, but the human cost should not be forgotten. If you're willing to steal money from the American people, from patients, you're willing to sacrifice their health, and you're willing to give up their lives. And we have witnessed that with multiple individuals who have come forward, now that they feel like it's safe to go up and stand up and be held for what they have witnessed in their lives. The affordability crisis that was highlighted by Colin is a real one. $100 billion minimum just in health care from Medicare and Medicaid is our estimate. The Medicare Trust Fund, the fund that will make sure Medicare is there for you if you're watching right now. All of you are working your tails off, hoping Medicare will be with you. We would double the life expectancy of the Medicare Trust Fund if we could cut out the fraud, waste, and abuse in Medicare alone. Working families across America would benefit from having more money to pay towards all the things that can sometimes plague your family, and your health is your most valuable thing. Folks who are sick only want one thing in the world: to get their health back. And that's what we're going to give them by making sure the money is in the system to pay for them. California Hospice, to give you some hard numbers, 1,800 hospices in California. Is that the right number? Where nationwide we have just over 6,000 hospices. So why would almost 1/3 of all the hospices in the whole country be in Los Angeles County? I'm not talking about all of California, just right here. And the U.S. Attorney is absolutely right. You should be incredulous. We are, and we're going after these folks. We believe half of them are fraudulent. Half of the 1,800 hospices should not be in business if we are able to identify the red flags, and that's what we're basing these numbers on. These are not random assumptions. World experts at CMS say if you've got 100% or near survival, certainly if you've got a survival over 50% for a population that's supposed to pass in 6 months, you've got a problem. If you're clustered in the same buildings as other crooks, if you're sharing employee numbers and license numbers, if you've got a small number of people, less than 50 members, you do that because you can hide what's really going on when they're small, because you don't have reporting obligations. J-1 visa holders, there are lots of things going on in California that just are not rational, and we're going to take them out. These defendants that you heard about, there were 7 hospices. I want to pat them on the back. The entire first 4 years of really looking at this issue since 2021, when the report came out from the Auditor General here in California, the entire first 4 years, there were 4 hospices that were revoked. 4 hospices. 7 of them were criminal charges today. So you see a dramatic and appropriate shift. There are other people involved that the U.S. Attorney is going after. Fariba Jabarian, probably read about last night, had her billing privileges revoked by CMS. Yesterday, she had generated $127 million of billing. And for some reason, although everyone knew that there was a problem there, her 113 agencies that she worked with, 113 agencies, one doctor is working with, had billed over the last 3 years $127 million. CMS is going to suspend payments to stop money from leaving the U.S. That's our goal. We're going to review every single hospice in California to make sure that they're all appropriate, and we hope to do that expeditiously. We'll do it this year. And I'm going to make an announcement today, because I want to throw the gauntlet down for Governor Newsom. When asked about the hospice fraud in California, that again was in his own administration was involved in barking how bad our issue it was in 2021, he responds by saying that he's been responsible for taking out 280 of these hospices. In the 10 weeks since we first were together in front of you, in the 10 weeks, we have taken out 221 hospices already. 221. We will surpass the governor's achievements in the first 4 years within the month, we believe. And so we need to get serious, and we don't see that happening in California. The ecosystem is rotten. We've uncovered lots of other derivatives that happen when you don't take care of this fraud in the way it needs to be done. And I'll give you a good example. Your neighbor.
Okay, back here in the live Impact News studio. Early on in that press conference, some major announcements from Colin McDonald about the pursuit of some fraud cases that they are looking into and looking to uncover. Now, we are going to take another break here on Live Impact News. When we come back, we're going to go over some of the responses from Virginia senators to President Trump's address to the nation last night. We're also going to show you here on your screen how to go and get the $50 parking voucher for oceanfront parking this spring and summer. That is a new initiative from Virginia Beach. All of that coming up after this break. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. Let's go through some statements from Virginia senators regarding news from yesterday and ultimately news from this afternoon as well. Let's start with Tim Kaine. Now, Tim Kaine is responding to President Donald Trump's address to the nation last night regarding the war in Iran. We'll give a brief bit of background on what that address entailed. Now, there was extensive description of the damage done to Iran, talk of objectives accomplished when it comes to eliminating their Navy, their Air Force, their industrial base, thank yous given to Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, and Bahrain for their help. Talk of how we were economically prepared for this from President Trump. And that all came before the declaration that we're going to hit them extremely hard here for the next 2 to 3 weeks. He included a statement along the lines of send them back to the Stone Age. So there was a sort of a description of further war in Iran to come from that address, at the very least, hitting them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. He did talk about how regime change wasn't the goal, but it has occurred. He said that these new groups of leadership are less radical. That is coming from President Donald Trump last night in his address. And again, 2 to 3 weeks going to hit them extremely hard. That is a statement that has been covered extensively, as there was a drop in the stock market and a rise in U.S. oil prices coming after that address today. And some of that has been reportedly attributed to the fact that there was a mention of weeks more of war from President Donald Trump. Now, as far as Tim Kaine's response to this, of course, he's a member of the Senate Armed Services and Foreign Relations Committee. Here is his statement. More than a month into an illegal and unwise war against Iran, President Trump decided to finally attempt to offer the American public an explanation. That attempt fell way short. Having apparently learned nothing from 25 years of tragic wars in the Middle East, Trump started this war on his own without a clear rationale, without a well-considered plan, without the support of allies, and without the constitutionally required authorization from Congress. Now, with mounting U.S. casualties, rapidly escalating expense, widening chaos in the region, and economic punishment of Americans already burdened by fast-rising energy, healthcare, and housing prices, the president tries to both claim victory and blame others for his own ineptitude. American troops always perform bravely and with distinction, but they have been too often betrayed by poor decision-making from civilian leadership, and this sad pattern is repeating itself here. The solution is not more war. It's time for Congress to end the president's war-making, remove our troops from harm's way, restore our ties with allies rather than destroy them, prioritize defense and diplomacy rather than juvenile boasting about war, and finally focus on helping Americans here at home by tackling the affordability crisis. So that is Senator Tim Kaine responding to President Donald Trump's address last night, some of the contents of which we covered here in our preview of that statement. Now, a statement came down from Senator Warner as well regarding that war in Iran and the address from President Trump last night. However, we have just very recently here, let's get a sure time on this thing. As of 1:38 p.m., just less than an hour ago, we got a statement from Senator Mark Warner on the firing of Pam Bondi as Attorney General. So let's dive into that statement from Senator Warner instead. Attorney General Bondi's firing follows her botched handling of the Epstein files, a failure that denied victims transparency and further undermined trust in our justice system. But this is bigger than one official. President Trump has repeatedly treated the Department of Justice like a political weapon, pressuring prosecutors, rewarding loyalty over independence, and using the machinery of federal law enforcement to pursue vengeance against his perceived enemies while shielding his allies from accountability. That pattern includes efforts to nationalize voting through an executive order that has been widely challenged as an unlawful attempt to override state authority, as well as the Fulton County raid tied to the president's obsession with losing the 2020 election. This kind of abuse subverts the rule of law and corrodes the Justice Department's ability to deliver impartial justice. When the Justice Department is distracted by politics and stripped of its credibility, it can't do its core job of keeping Americans safe. Americans deserve a Justice Department that is actually focused on delivering justice, not on serving a president's agenda of personal and political self-interest. So hearing from our two Virginia senators today, one statement from Tim Kaine on the war in Iran, another statement from Mark Warner on the breaking news that we got in this stream, the firing of Pam Bondi, that came down today from her position as Attorney General. So we are able to get statements from both of our Virginia senators on multiple headlines that we are looking at today. Now let's do some local news here. Let's look into a piece of local news that we got from Jeremiah Beatty yesterday, one of our reporters here at 13 News Now. She has been on this program actually, but yesterday she reported on a new program from Virginia Beach, a $50 parking voucher plan for the oceanfront. Virginia Beach says that the program is designed to make parking more affordable for locals who often say cost and access keep them away. So a cheaper option, the $50, and then access, that parking that you need to be able to go and enjoy the oceanfront. It's a new voucher plan, and it's aimed at getting more locals to the oceanfront. Online registration is now open. Residents can start applying right away. City leaders say the program is designed to make this more affordable. So let's take a look at that application. We pulled up the application here for you. So that if you do want to go and do this and utilize this program, this is what you'll find. Okay, there's the voucher program plan that it sort of lays out for you. Online registration now opened, as we say. The plan will begin to roll out in the following weeks. City staff will review applications and approval emails with instructions. Will start going out around April 10th, 8 days from now. Now, can we scroll down a bit here, Naya? And actually, I can take over because I know that you've got a lot that you are doing over there to produce. So if we scroll down here just a little bit, things you'll need in your application: a valid driver's license, one additional document showing your name and address within city limits. You see the examples there. And your email address and phone number. And here is where you can apply right here. And we can even take a look. Why don't we take a look and see where this takes us here? And there it is. Looks relatively straightforward from here. And of course, they've got the background of the oceanfront there to kind of get you in the mood as you plan on getting your parking voucher. Name, email, mobile number. You got your driver's license that you select here, letting them know your age. And then you can see under our banner here a submit button right down here for when you are all done. And then we're not going to go much further than this on our program, but that will take you through the next steps so that you can make sure that you go and apply for this program. Now, I am going to go ahead and pull this up on my computer, and I'm going to read you the URL that you'll need. Now, if you go to virginiabeach.gov, you can ultimately find this page, but specifically it's pw.virginiabeach.gov/parking/resort area parking/resident parking voucher plan. I know that that is a long URL, but if you wanted to go straight there, you could. But if you go to virginiabeach.gov, oftentimes you will be able to find these things just by clicking through a few of the pages that they have on their website. Now, actually, I just clicked through the website, and it actually is very, very easy to find. If you just go to virginiabeach.gov and scroll down on their homepage, Virginia PW, which is publicworks.virginiabeach.gov, scroll down on their homepage, you ultimately will find that particular application that we had for you. If you scroll down, you'll find latest updates from Public Works. You can click and read that full post. And then on that post, there is another button that will take you to the resident parking voucher plan. I may not be doing the easiest job of explaining this, or the best job of explaining this, but just know that it's easy to find. If you type in Virginia Beach parking voucher plan, or if you go to virginiabeach.gov, this is something you'll be able to find, and then you can get that $50 oceanfront voucher that will allow you access to select oceanfront parking locations, and will make it much more affordable, according to the city, to go and hang out at the oceanfront as a local. It'll be something that is much, much more affordable, something that is always, trouble. If you go down to the oceanfront a lot, you're going to have to find parking, and it could be expensive. This allows for select surface lots, garages, and on-street metered spaces, $50 for a long-standing parking voucher. So please, if you plan on going to the oceanfront a lot this year, go out and pick one of those up if you're so inclined. Now, we have been mentioning this event that we're anticipating for some time here, okay? The Department of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and the Director of the Environmental Protection Agency, Lee Zeldin, are supposed to be taking the stage here at some point in this hour to discuss microplastics, an announcement on microplastics. But it has not started yet, as you can see. This is a live look in the room. Now, there is the added layer of intrigue that Lee Zeldin is considered to be one of the candidates to replace Pam Bondi as Attorney General. Pam Bondi, obviously, her firing became public just hours ago, and now Zeldin scheduled to take this stage. So sort of an interesting dichotomy there, but we don't have any further information on what the holdup is. Sometimes these things just take a while to get going. It has nothing to do with any sort of issues. It just takes a while to get everyone organized and get these things going. So as soon as it does begin, we'll head out there, not just for the opportunity to hear from Lee Zeldin, but to hear the announcement on microplastics, a hot button issue in health circles, most definitely. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're actually going to dive into the North Carolina General Assembly talking about Hurricane Helene recovery efforts. That hurricane now feels as though it was so long ago, but it was so devastating to those communities in North Carolina. Recovery efforts are ongoing. We're going to dive a little deeper into those when we come back from this commercial. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. We've been talking about it for the majority of the day, the anticipation of this announcement on microplastics. Let's go live. It has just begun from the EPA and the Health and Human Services Committee.
Administrator for the Office of Water, Jessica Kramer. And we also welcome today our panelists, Colleen Flaherty. She is a Division Director of EPA's Office of Water, where she leads work to protect public health and safeguard the nation's water resources. Also, Dr. Marcus Erickson, an environmental scientist and co-founder of Five Jars Institute, known for pioneering research on microplastics and ocean pollution. Dr. Matthew Campen is a biomedical scientist and professor at University of New Mexico who studies how pollutants, including microplastics, affect the brain and cardiovascular system. Dr. Leo Trisandi is a physician scientist and professor at NYU Lagoon Health, whose work focuses on environmental exposures and their impact on child health and long-term outcomes. Thank you all for being here and for the work you are doing to advance the field at a very critical moment. And now it's my pleasure to introduce a man who has spent more than 4 decades working at the intersection of environmental protection and public health, HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy, Jr.
Hello, everybody. Today we mark a turning point. The EPA and HHS are acting together to confront microplastics as a human health threat. And we are doing it with urgency and discipline. Plastic has become embedded in modern life. It's also become embedded in the human body. Researchers have detected microplastics in human blood, lung tissue, liver, kidneys, and human placentas. Studies have found them in more than 80% of people tested. One analysis estimates that the average person ingests tens of thousands of microplastic particles each year through food, water, and air. Another study reports concentrations in the brain equivalent by mass to roughly a spoonful of plastic in every human brain. And this number, by the way, has gone up by 50% since 2016. And inevitably, it's going to go up exponentially if we continue along the same road. And in a study of 62 placentas, every single sample contained microplastics, evidence that exposure begins before birth. This is not a rare exposure, this is baseline. We are not dealing with a distant or theoretical risk. We are dealing with a measurable and growing presence inside the human body. And the signal is getting stronger. Animal studies show that microplastic exposure can drive inflammation, cardiovascular damage, impaired cognition, and tumor growth. Human data raises parallel concerns. Diseased tissue consistently shows higher concentrations of microplastics than compared to healthy tissue. In one major clinical study, patients with microplastics detected in arterial plaque faced a 4.5-fold higher risk of heart attack, stroke, or death in less than 3 years. That's a 450% elevated risk. We do not ignore signals like that. We investigate them. But we still do not have clear answers about causation or solutions. We cannot reliably quantify total microplastic burden in individuals, and we can't distinguish which particle sizes, shapes, components, or polymers drive the worst toxicity. We do not yet understand how these particles interact with the immune system, the endocrine system, or the neurological system. And we do not have validated methods to remove them safely. Not all microplastics behave the same. Different materials accumulate in different organs and appear to drive different biological effects. Without that distinction, there is no roadmap for action. We can't treat what we cannot measure. We cannot regulate what we don't understand. So today, HHS, through ARPA-H, Alicia Jackson here, alongside EPA, is taking direct action. We are launching STOMP, which stands for Systematic Targeting of Microplastics. It's a $144 million national program to measure, understand, and to remove microplastics from the human body. We are focusing on three questions: what is in the body, what's causing the harm, and how do we remove it? And we're answering them in that order. We will first build and standardize gold-grade tools capable of detecting and quantifying microplastics across tissue and fluids with precision. Next, we will map how microplastics move through the body, how they cross biological barriers like the gut lining and the blood-brain barrier, where they accumulate, and how long they persist. Third, we will develop targeted, clinically safe strategies to reduce microplastic burden in the body. We will also prioritize those at the greatest risk: pregnant women whose exposure reaches the developing fetus, children whose bodies and brains are still in formation, workers in high exposure environments, and patients with chronic conditions that may be exacerbated by inflammatory or toxic stressors. The science has not kept pace with the scale of exposure. We are now going to close that gap. We are bringing together engineers, clinicians, toxicologists, and data scientists. We are setting measurable targets. We are holding ourselves accountable for results. I want to thank Alicia Jackson, the director of ARPA-H, for driving this effort forward, and my colleague and friend, Administrator Lee Zeldin at EPA, the Assistant Administrator for Office of Water, Jessica Kramer, and everyone else at the EPA for aligning environmental and human health priorities into a single mission. Together, we're going to define the risks, build the tools, and act on the evidence regarding microplastics. We're not going to speculate, we're going to measure. We're not going to delay, we are going to move. And thanks to the leadership of President Trump, we will give the American people clear answers about what's in their bodies and what it means for their health. This is how we're going to make America healthy again. Thank you, and I'm now honored to introduce my colleague, my friend, Administrator Lee Zeldin at EPA.
Well, thank you, Secretary Kennedy, and welcome back to EPA. This room is filled up not just with a lot of great dedicated staffers here at EPA, but others from outside of government, as well as HHS. And I'm sure everyone here is extremely grateful for your leadership and all of your work. As a New Yorker, I've seen so many different ways that you've impacted the place where I grew up, that was home, born and raised. And this isn't a mission that you started 14 months ago. It was a mission that you started decades ago, and grateful for your passion. Thankful for the entire team at HHS for being here and being part of this momentous day for drinking water in the United States. And shortly after his swearing in last year, President Trump created the Make America Healthy Again Commission, chaired by Secretary Kennedy. Under the leadership of Secretary Kennedy, it's been an honor to serve as part of this significant initiative that has brought together so many different agencies to collaborate. And that's one of the things that we've seen from President Trump time and again. I've experienced it with the National Energy Dominance Council as well. You had these different agencies that were siloed off in the past. They're just focused on their own equities, in their own worlds. They're not coordinating, they're not cooperating. And as a result, you end up with a less efficient government. But the culture that we have inside this administration is for a maximum amount of collaboration, and that is why we're here today. And we're taking major steps in today's announcement to make America healthy again. I'm pleased to announce a landmark set of actions by EPA to safeguard the nation's drinking water from microplastics, pharmaceuticals, forever chemicals, and dozens of other contaminants. At the heart of these actions is our draft 6th contaminant candidate list, known as CCL6, which we are releasing today for public comment. CCL6 is a critical tool under the Safe Drinking Water Act that drives research, funding, and future regulation of emerging threats in public water systems. The draft CCL6 includes 4 contaminant groups: microplastics, pharmaceuticals, PFAS, and disinfection byproducts. It also covers 75 chemicals and 9 microbes that may be found in drinking water. And now, for the first time in the program's history, EPA is designating both microplastics and pharmaceuticals as priority contaminant groups. This is a direct response to the concern of millions of Americans who have long demanded answers about what they and their families are drinking every day. It's also a credit to the tireless efforts, research, and advocacy of the dozens of microplastics and drinking water experts, including many who we have here in the room today. This draft CCL6 is going to help us prioritize funding, research, and information collection. This will allow us to better understand the potential risks of these substances in drinking water while advancing gold standard science. For too long, Americans have been ignored as they sound the alarm about plastics in their drinking water. That ends today. By placing microplastics on the contaminant candidate list for the first time ever, EPA will follow the science, will pursue answers, and will hold ourselves to the highest standards to protect the health of Americans. Today's announcement marks the beginning of a 60-day public comment period, and we encourage Americans far and wide to make their voice heard and to give us feedback. We want your input. I can't think of an issue that hits closer to home for American families than the safety of their drinking water. And I want to be clear, this is just the first step in the regulatory process. The human health benchmarks for pharmaceuticals are not regulations, are not enforceable on their own, but they are a vital resource that can empower local decision makers to evaluate risks and protect their communities when pharmaceutical contamination is detected above safe levels. Today's actions represent a major step forward for drinking water. We are ensuring that the science catches up with the real-world challenges Americans face, and we are giving regulators the tools they need to act. This is a win for every American. With this effort, the Trump EPA is advancing gold standard science to inform policy and ensure the best possible outcomes so parents can feel confident filling their children's glasses at the kitchen sink. I want to thank you all again for your unrelenting commitment to making America healthy again and to the safety of our nation's drinking water. And now I will turn it over to Jessica. Jessica Kramer is our Assistant Administrator of our Office of Water here at EPA. She has an amazing team of dedicated career staffers at our Office of Water here at EPA. And I'd also like to recognize our excellent Deputy Administrator here at EPA who's sitting in their front row, David Fatui. Jessica.
Thank you, sir. Microplastics is a growing concern and a challenging contaminant to measure and assess in drinking water. But it's a concern that we are tackling head-on to protect Americans. EPA and the federal family are poised to address this issue and the CCL6, as well as our drinking water research efforts, as important steps that EPA is taking, as the administrator talked about today. We are in the early stages of research on methods to detect microplastics and how microplastics affect people's health, but we are committed to providing answers and actions for Americans who want to ensure their families can turn on their tap and know that their drinking water is safe. Additionally, as the administrator mentioned, we are releasing human health benchmarks for 374 pharmaceuticals, including antibiotics, antidepressants, hormones, and other drugs that enter the water. These include prescribed and over-the-counter pharmaceuticals. The current draft list includes pharmaceuticals that are both approved by the FDA for human use and are known to, or have the potential to, occur in drinking water sources like the Potomac here in DC, or in treated drinking water that is delivered to our homes. Again, these are not regulations. but they give states, tribes, and local water systems a critical new tool to assess risk and take action to protect their communities. For example, if a pharmaceutical occurs in drinking water at levels higher than the benchmark, a water system could conduct additional water monitoring or research to help ensure the health of their community. In addition to those benchmarks that we are releasing for public comment, with the CCL6 that the administrator mentioned, we believe that these are excellent steps and a great example of the federal family working together as we pair these with the announcements of Secretary Kennedy from HHS today. Our actions today represent a major step forward in drinking water, ensuring that the science catches up with the real-world challenges that the administrator mentioned. And we genuinely believe this is a win for every American as the Trump EPA commits to advancing gold standard science, utilizing radical transparency, and protecting our nation from the harms of toxic chemicals. Thank you so much for joining us for these exciting announcements today.
Thank you, Secretary Kennedy and Administrator Zeldin, for your leadership. My name is Alicia Jackson. I lead ARPA-H, the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health. Today we are launching STOMP, and we couldn't be starting soon enough. STOMP stands for Systematic Targeting of Microplastics. It is a nationwide $144 million program built to affordably and precisely measure microplastics in the human body, understand how they cause harm, and most importantly, to get them out at a cost that every American can have access to so that they can have the immediate and downstream health benefits. Here is the hard truth. Nobody wants unknown particles building up in their body.
Okay. Back here in the Live Impact News studio as microplastics being tackled there as a part of that panel. And of course, the story of microplastics is one that is evolving here in society, so we'll be keeping track of that. But also of intrigue, Lee Zeldin, the director of the EPA, speaking during that particular panel, reported to be one of the candidates to replace Pam Bondi. Breaking news in this stream, Pam Bondi ousted as Attorney General, no longer in charge of the Department of Justice. And with that, we say goodbye, and we hope to see you tomorrow afternoon right here on Live Impact News.